Ilia Topuria can do it. Ilia Topuria versus Islam Makhachev is inevitable. It's the biggest fight the UFC can make, not just in this moment, but of all time. This is going to be in the magnitude of Conor versus Khabib 2.0, but will be stylistically way more interesting considering Ilia isn't just a pure striker with godly power, but also has great grappling prowess, while on the other end, Islam isn't just a great grappler like Khabib, but can mix up elite striking as well. I said it in the last video, but I'll say it here again. I truly believe this will be the greatest fight of all time, considering what is going to be on the line. The lightweight title is on the line, pound for pound is on the line, and probably GOAT status on the line as well, or at the very least top 3. If either guy gets the other on their resume, that's GOAT level shit, and both guys are on track to be top 10 anyways if they haven't gotten there already. And despite a crazy finish of Charles Oliveira by Ilia Topuria this past weekend, and his hype and aura at an all-time high, Ilia Topuria pretty much across the board is still the underdog. However, those odds are definitely closing in. So with this historic super fight probably happening in the next year or so, let's detail how the betting underdog Ilia Topuria can beat Islam Makhachev. Alright, first order of business for Ilia Topuria is to land that bomb on Islam Makhachev like he has done in the last 3 fights and pretty much his whole entire career. But I think this is easier said than done against someone so well-rounded and well-prepared as Islam Makhachev. So how does Ilia land? As much as Ilia's hooks have been known to kill anyone up to 170, I think he shouldn't swing wide against Islam Makhachev for 2 reasons. 1, and most obvious, Islam is very good at timing takedowns from wide hooks. Wide hooks leave the hips open for a takedown and it is harder to recover out of the position to defend the takedown. But most importantly, Ilia Topuria can take advantage of one consistent opening Islam has in his striking with straight punches. Islam's tendency to back up and answer forward pressure with a check hook, a hook usually poorly timed. Multiple times in the Volk fight, this hook was not timed correctly from Islam's part and led to Volk finding openings moving forward. Like early in the Volk fight here, when Volk baits out that hook, ducks under, and even though he doesn't counter that punch specifically, it leads him to get a really good position and catch Islam out of position to land this big left hand that stumbles Islam. Or here, when Volk again got aggressive, Islam swung way too wide and too late, which led to Volk getting inside position. And here's yet another example of Islam swinging way too wide, which leads to Volk catching him off balance. And then similarly here, Islam's tendency to throw a wide hook gets punished again, which leads to Volk getting Islam to the ground kind of. And the biggest punch landed in the Dustin Poirier fight. It was a left hand setup from 2 forward pushing jabs that got a wide hook attempt out of Islam Makhachev, which led to this big left hand getting there. Islam has this instant reaction to forward pressure to swing wide, and this is the exact opening a guy like Ilia Topuria needs. Ilia can generate some crazy power from short distances, and even though he can decimate granite chins with wide hooks, of course, I could see him in a sequence in which Ilia moves forward, baiting out the wide hook from Islam, and Ilia lands what he landed on Charles and just completely destroys Islam right then and there, punishing that wide hook. Ilia is of course going to move forward the entire time, but if he can put on that pressure to really make Islam scared and throw that wide hook out of pure instinct, it's over. GG. But like they say, if you're looking for a knockout, you'll never find it. And the game plan for Ilia Topuria shouldn't be finding that one opening, especially in a matchup this high level. So let's exploit another tendency Islam has, and that's his tendency to default to a tie clinch. Islam loves the tie clinch, especially on shorter fighters like Dustin and Volk. He's one of the strongest lightweights, so he likes to take advantage of that by pulling down on the neck, pulling his opponents, landing knees, or controlling this clinch to get into position to transition to a takedown. Take for example Islam meeting Volk in the middle with a strong tie clinch, controlling the position here, moving Volk to where he wants it to be, which is the fence, and transitioning this to a takedown. He also abuses this tie clinch here with Dustin at the end of round 2, bringing him to the fence to eventually transition to a double. But again, he also likes to land some big knees down the middle regardless of the opponent. He uses it to go forward, or he uses it defensively when he's backed up against the cage. The first answer to this clinch is to immediately go under and break it before Islam can truly control this position, just like Volk does here. But I like Dustin's approach a lot, as he solves this by not freaking out and staying in the position to land hooks to the body. And I really like this for Ilia Topuria as well, someone who can generate some insane power from short distances. I mean, he knocked out Ryan Hall when he was literally up in his grill on the ground. I think he can launch some nasty short hooks in this position that could really fuck up Islam's body and maybe even shut it down with a solid liver shot like Islam was a fan. And Ilia needs to be really strong and comfortable in the clinch in general. Islam, besides the tie clinch, loves to be in this 50-50 clinch, throw knees, wear on his opponents until he can find a takedown. Ilia has to be careful here because Islam is insane at finding a throw and transitioning into a dominant mounted position. We really haven't seen Ilia's grappling or strength tested, so I'm really interested to see if he gets bullied in this position or is able to prevent Islam from wearing on him. But whatever Ilia does in this position, whether it be launching hooks or defending knees or staying in the clinch, I think he has to be really careful and aware of Islam using this position to drag him to the fence and transition into grappling, a place Islam will want to be in the entire fight. Because it's pretty clear that Islam will probably want to wrestle and grapple the entire fight. I think I've said this in previous videos that Islam could maybe win this fight on the stand-up by launching a high kick and keeping this fight in kickboxing range, but I think after what Ilia did to Charles, Islam and really Khabib in the camp will not let Islam strike with Ilia. He's just way too fucking dangerous, and so the plan might honestly be to grapple the entire time. Islam usually mixes it up pretty well in his Dustin, Volk, and Charles fights, but I think we're going to see more of a younger version of Islam, like the one seen in the Arman fight, a really heavy wrestling approach meant to grind them out and get the decision. Ilia needs to prepare for that long chain wrestling Islam brings to the table, especially being careful of things when Islam gets it to the cage. Islam is a master at bringing you to the cage, dragging you down, and sneaking a leg between you and the cage to prevent any fence work to get back up. He's probably the best at this and has done this against countless elite opponents. In the Volk fight early, Islam sneaks in a leg between Volk and the fence, and it happens so subtly but so fast, but before you know it, he has a dominant position that lasts until the end of the round. And if we put all of Islam's tools together, the ones we've talked about, early in the third round with Dustin Poirier, he uses a tie clinch to close the distance and launch a knee, transitions to locking his hands around Dustin's body, pushes him to the cage, and uses the clinch to throw Dustin down, and then sneaks in that knee between Dustin and the cage to eventually get a dominant body triangle. This is a classic Islam sequence all around. So for Ilia Topuria, I would recognize that once he starts dragging you to the cage, do everything in your power to keep your body attached to the cage to prevent a leg from slipping in there. Again, we really haven't seen Ilia's grappling tested in the UFC, so it's hard to gauge or guess how Ilia is going to fare against an extremely aggressive, forward-moving grappling approach that's probably going to come out of Islam, but I would assume he fares well. I think with Islam, he has less dominant top pressure than a guy like Khabib. Dustin, Arman, and Volk were able to get out of Islam's mount, so for Ilia, someone with originally a grappling base, I would assume he would fare really well with Islam's grappling. You know, the more I watch Islam Makhachev, the more I think he's extremely beatable given his very consistent tendencies. I know you can say that with pretty much any fighter that you research, but with Islam Makhachev usually being regarded as one of the most well-rounded fighters that can mix up the martial arts well, you really can simplify his game to dragging his opponents to the ground and eventually getting that knee to a dominant position. Ilia Topuria can recognize this on top of exploiting that opening with that check hook with a giant straight punch. I really do think Ilia Topuria has a much better chance than the odds give him. And for that reason, I think Ilia Topuria can win this fight and will win this fight when this fight happens. But anyways, what do you guys think of this super fight? How can Ilia Topuria beat Islam Makhachev? How will this fight play down? With both guys having an insanely deep bag and some of the most elite striking and grappling, I'm really interested to see how this super fight goes. But anyways, of course, thank you guys for watching and always supporting, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.